to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the El Segundo City Council, Tuesday, August 16th. The invocation will be given by Pastor Garrett of the Way Church, and Councilmember Brown will lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Father, you said in your word, men ought to always not to sin. But we are to devote our lives to communicate with you so that you can guide our way through this sometimes difficult maze of life. We don't know what to do. We can confidently approach your throne and hear you say, "Here." You also said, if any of us lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that give it to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, but not wavering. For he that wavereth is like the wave of the sea, driven by the wind and is tossed. But let not that man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. Also said, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh in vain. So we pray for the police department, that you keep them safe, hurt, harm, and danger, protect the city. We come to you, ask for wisdom needed to govern the city, great city of El Segundo. We believe it, that you've given it right now, and that every leader's heart here tonight will receive it, because you have access to all for leadership and direction. In Jesus' name, amen.
Saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
This evening, we have a presentation from our city treasurer.
Thank you. Krista Binder, City Treasurer. There it goes. Tonight I wanted to present the City of ending June 2016. This shows our both short-term and long-term investment portfolios at market value. The total market value of the city's current investments through this period is 70. This is the slide that shows our compliance again with the city's investment policy, which was approved back in April of 2016. This is an additional slide that we have included. I'll explain this a little bit more detail. The California State Code allows a maximum in this particular asset class of 30%. We, the City Council, approved that at a lower percentage to provide some more which are corporate securities. So this shows that our investment in this particular asset class currently is 3.62%, and we further limited our constraints by issuer. So you'll see that we're under that 3% for each of these this is a new slide. This was part of the adopted investment policy back in April, which shows the Treasury team and their commitment to continuing education. So initially, we put a requirement in the policy of 5 hours a year. Exceeded that, and we have more continuing education that we're taking part of. Actually, we just signed up for another certification through the, it's called the Chartered Financial Analyst in conjunction with the California Municipal Treasurers Association. We're currently signed up for that and should be starting those classes fairly soon. This is the current portfolio by asset type. As you can see, cash immediate means the cash in bank. LAIF is our local immediate cash, which is the city's portfolio, and then we also hold money for funds we received for the residential sound installation program. We also have negotiable CDs at about almost 11 million, and then government obligation, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fair Home Loan Bank, and then bonds are what we consider our corporate securities, or medium-term notes. And then we continue to try to ladder out further on the portfolio. So you'll see the cash and bank, and then towards the 1 to 5 years. If you had looked at previous slides, you'll see that this is starting to get more evenly distributed in those longer term years, which is part of our goal, is to ladder out the securities evenly across between the 1 and 5. Interesting. The Treasury yield curve has flattened between the prior reporting period. If you look at the 5-year Treasury, it's reduced about 20 basis points since March 30th. Reported previously, we're down about 60 basis points in the 5-year. So the curve is it's lower, it's flatter. It means you make a little bit more money on the short end, but not much money on the long end. So one of the bond yields, but the economy seems strong, so we'll see how it goes. So this further explains that numerically, how you can see the change over time between the different securities or different date ranges. Presentation to Dino Marsoci, our Deputy Treasurer, too. Switch.
Good evening. This time I went back to doing just a 12-month rolling cash flow. One thing I would want to point out, though, the good news is this June of this year is actually positive, whereas June of last year was negative. And spent a lot of money on the residential sound insulation program. And then this year we collected $2.8 million of that. So that was a big part of the change. And then a few of our other expenses were a little bit lower this year, which was nice to see. It's also going to be positive because we collected another $4.7 million in residential sound insulation from both LAWA and the FAA. So that's a positive. As you can see, it's above the line, which is nice. And then the activity since we last reported, we purchased 735,000 in CDs, 2.2 million in bonds, and had a couple. Since then, as we've collected some of that money from the FAA and LAWA, we've been able to buy almost $3 million in bonds, agency bonds, a corporate bond, and just had one of our other corporate bonds mature. Was in previous quarters, if you were to look at the slide from the previous reports, the change in yield on the invested versus the matured was always a bit much higher than this. But this is reflected, as Krista just showed you, the yield rate. Higher yielding investments are maturing, and it's a little bit tougher to gain on those than it was before. And so far, with all of this change, we're up $6 million in investments this fiscal year. Looking at the June projection in red, GDP is down. It was 1.2% last quarter. They're hoping to finish up at about 2% for the year, and you can see they've lowered the projections for next year. Unemployment's still holding steady below 5%. Inflation's holding steady around 1%. Not much has changed there. They still show a good trend of what's keeping the economy moving right now. And then lastly, this slide here shows the Fed funds projections. And you can see back in March, they had it about 1.25, which people were guessing end of the year. As of June, it's at 0.75. So now they're saying maybe there's a 45 to 50% chance of an increase this year. It changes. The other day, one of the Federal Reserve members said there's a chance they could raise it in September. So as Krista said, we'll have to see what happens and how that affects the rates and make investments as best we can. anyone has any questions.
Several slides back, there was, on one of the bullet points, the initials LAIF. What fund is that?
That's the Local Agency Investment Fund. It's
Local
run by the
agency?
state of- Run by the state of money, but it pays much more than what we earn on our earnings credit in the bank. So when we have excess cash, we try to put it there while we're waiting to find other investments.
Thank you.
And use 2.8 million from the RSI payment?
It's primarily a reimbursement of advanced
Right.
cash. Yeah, so.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Reimbursement. We've already put the money out, done the work, and we're waiting for Wawa
Yes.
to reimburse us. So, please, Cristantino, so informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Perstuck, absent this evening. Councilmember Brand,
Present.
Councilmember
Here. Now is the time for public communications related to city business only, 5 minutes per person, limit 30 minutes.
408 standards. In previous ones, pilot payment in lieu of taxes has shown up. I did not see it in this particular presentation. I wonder if there's an explanation for that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mr. City Manager. My name is Wendell Phillips. I'm the attorney that represents the city. I'm here tonight to complain about what I believe is city staff's mistreatment of a 38-year employee. This involves a personnel matter, so I won't get into details. It also involves a medical problem, and I won't be disclosing the medical problem. But I will tell you that this 38-year employee is permanently disabled from a disease and incapable of continuing to work for you. That's not an issue. In fact, I cooperated with the city's reasonable accommodation process and came to that opinion in one meeting and tried to assist this employee ease in, and were granted the ability of the employee to receive catastrophic leave benefits, which, in case there's those that don't know, that's time that's donated by other employees to employees that are out of time. I didn't pay. Now, who would have thought that an employee that's too medically disabled to work at any city job, it wasn't just a reasonable accommodation for the job this employee fills, but who would have thought that an employee that was so disabled that no employee would not receive SDI? The employee didn't receive SDI. The employee applied. The city certainly had, I've received an almost inch-thick packet of the personnel action justifying why this employee can't work for you anymore. Never an issue. We never disagreed with it. It has to be discharged. It will be discharged this Friday. The problem is for the last 6 to 7 weeks, the employee has not received SDI. Now, I have complained about it. The employee's doctor has complained about it. Nobody seems to be able to make the connection if you're out of California. I've had my office trying continually for the last 3 weeks and have never gotten anything more than a telephone tree. And this is a peak time to try to call us back. I've actually had my staff call close to midnight, at 4 in the morning, any time of the day, and it's always the same message, which probably means just go away and don't bother us anymore. But I have pleaded with the city because SDI, you, by the way, are the holders of the SDI contract. The employee does not have a contract with SDI, and although I suppose party beneficiary theory with which to sue SDI to try to get the money, you can imagine how long that would take, and if it were not for personal loans to this employee, they would be living on the street after 38 years in your employ. So this is what I ask. I have applied for this employee's working for you will coincide with the date that this paperwork says he's to be discharged this Friday. I would ask you to instruct city staff, and I know it's not on the agenda and you can't do it as a formal action of the council, but I hope the message gets through that I would hope by this Friday that whatever that SDI would pay would be given to the employee as their last check so they can live between now, the 19th, this Friday, and when CalPERS tries to get them their first check by the 15th of next month. They've been getting a check for the city for there are people. I imagine my own mother could have done it, figured out a way to live on $250 a week. But in this day and age, I don't think that's possible. It's certainly not possible to put a roof over your head and food in your mouth when you're incapable of working. So I would ask that the city staff held, anticipating that SDI would come through, and it never has, and I will press SDI, and if we get the money back, I'll see that you get whatever you would have had coming had SDI paid. But can't, for a 38-year employee, we release the other employee's money? It's not city taxpayer money. It's release whatever balance is left to this 38-year-old permanently, incurably disabled employee so they can live from this Friday to the 15th of next month. I think that's a problem that I think could be solved if the want to is to try to lend the want to be there. We're not contesting the personnel action. Nobody but a fool would try to claim that this person could continue to work for you given their medical history. And we will not contest this. I have signed the letter. I have his power of attorney, my word. He will not have any money to live on until CalPERS gets through their bureaucratic mess to issue him his first check a month hence. So I would ask that you look into that and show some mercy on this person that's ably served you for
You do, Madam Mayor, Council. Ron Swanson, 629 California Street. Unfinished business, the parking restrictions within the city. I would encourage, again, the Smoky Hollow area, the Imperial Avenue area, and the residential area. They're unique to one another. Smoky Hollow, a lot of commercial trucks down there don't even belong here in El Segundo. So I think you need to look at the idea, parked, say you're allowed to go overnight. I don't know what you're going to come up with, but even to the point of requiring business owners that are located in the city of El Segundo with a street address, not a post office box, a street address per year, they got to fill out a form and they get a sticker for their window. That means they belong here. There are so many vehicles down there that just park. They use it as a parking lot or a safe zone for their equipment. I don't blame them because we patrol Imperial Avenue, and then within the residential zone. Not only have you don't have motorhomes, but you also have detached trailers. There's car trailers. I think there's one on, I want to say Sheldon and Penn. It's low, it's black, it's tough. It's not like a trailer sitting there, it's low. And that happens all over this city. So again, I would encourage you looking at, I know you have to do it citywide, but you can tweak it a little bit for different areas. I can mark there sometimes. It's to what happens in November. People are scratching their head. Be prepared for sticker shock for the businesses that are in this town. We personally got one this morning for starting December 1st, a 25.5% increase. That's a lot. You combine that with wages, minimum wages and things like that, and it's a disaster for recently appointed a new Parks and Rec commissioner. This has nothing to do with his qualifications. I don't know the person. This is about the person that didn't get. And I'm kind of offended to the fact that it was stated that, but you lost a very, very valuable person. That man put his heart and soul into it for 12 years. I don't know if you even knew this. Every morning, he would do a drive-by of every field in this town that you didn't have to compensate. So I would encourage you, the reload doesn't have to be based on, well, you've been on it too long. Look at the qualifications. Look at what they do. I mean, there are some really talented people in this town that belong on the commissions and again, that didn't get appointment, who was very, very well qualified. Thank you for your time.
Seeing no more public communications, closed for council comments.
Since the treasurer stayed with us here, could you answer that question from Mr. Mendez about pilot?
Referencing is the payment from Chevron that came in the prior period. So since this is a report based upon the 3 months prior, it wouldn't have been referenced. So I think that was the question.
So it gets reported once a year?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe we calculate that payment in January and receive it in March from Chevron.
Okay.
Okay. Procedural motion, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 4-0. Unfinished business, item 1, on-street parking of recreational and oversized vehicles. Data gathered on the public opinion of the issue will be presented, along with the field survey of parked recreational vehicles and oversized vehicles on public streets. Various regulatory measures, SPAC. City Manager.
Mayor, members of council,
Yeah,
Daisy, oh, go ahead.
yeah, Mayor, I need to, or I'd like to recuse myself from this. I have not only a property in Smoky Hollow, but I have a couple businesses in town with commercial vehicles, so I think it's best that I abstain, so I'm going to step.
Daisy Sanchez, the intern in the city manager's office, and Lieutenant Lehman from the police department will make this presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Today I'm going to talk about recreational vehicles and oversized. I'd like to start off with some important definitions. A recreational vehicle is defined as any motorhome, travel trailer, truck, camper, or camping trailer with or without motive power designed for human habitation for recreational, emergency, or other occupation. 2 feet in length, 7 feet in width, and 8 feet in height. So this distinction is important because a commercial vehicle could be considered under the oversized vehicle limitation, but it could not be considered under the recreational vehicle definition. Starting from your left, you have a recreational vehicle that's a tent trailer, also a van camper, trailer, and motorhome. A motorhome would be over that space specified by the oversized vehicle definition. On these vehicles being parked around town and the safety that goes along with that. So fire and emergency access is reduced, especially on narrow streets and cul-de-sacs. Detached trailers impede parking circulation, particularly in the case of emergency. That would be a safety hazard, as some of them may not have an independent braking system. The obstruction of line of sight of approaching traffic at driveways and intersections, and persons living near residences, schools, and businesses in these vehicles, which also brings about the concern. Some more concerns are the reduced roadway for bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorists, the trip and fall hazards due to those temporary electrical hookups to residences, use of public streets as auxiliary storage, reduced on-street aesthetics, as some of these trailers may cause visual blight. So I'd like to go over what our codes currently prohibit and what they do not, so that any vehicle cannot park for longer than 72 consecutive hours, which are defined as any trailer, camp car, or any similar type of equipment for longer than 48 consecutive hours. And just for further clarification, living in vehicles is prohibited. Section 8 or other recreational vehicle for human habitation cannot be lived in from the hours of 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. And then Section B just further reinstates those limitations for any motor vehicle. And for the Police Lieutenant Lehman, who I worked closely with in the gathering of field survey data.
Thank you, Daisy. Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for your time. The Police Department has several in our city. In addition to what Daisy mentioned about traffic safety for bicyclists, pedestrians, and passing vehicles as it relates to driveways and intersections, we have other public safety concerns as well. When we are called to these vehicles, if we knock on the door and they don't answer, we have to assume they're not in there. We can't force our way in. We don't know who's in these vehicles sometimes. So we've come across people with arrest warrants, registered sex offenders, on Imperial Avenue, blends into the residential area. And that's obviously something we want to know and be able to deal with. The way it works right now is if we get called and the person doesn't answer the door, the only thing we can do is mark the vehicle for 48 hours. Moves the vehicle an inch or 2 inches, the time is reset. And so we have to start over and wait another 48 hours. These people that come in here and live in motorhomes in our city, they know the game. So they'll just keep moving. To make it a little bit more complex is we are the only city around here now that doesn't have some type of regulation for this. And we're coming across people now that know this. One of my motor officers recently had a contact near, said, yeah, this is kind of the only place I can do this now. She did not admit to sleeping in her vehicle, and it was during the day, but she pretty much told us this is the place to come. And so without having a regulation, there's really not much we can do about it right now.
Thanks, Lieutenant. So now I would like to introduce our field survey of RVs that took place from June 28th till July 7th. These surveys took place Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 9 a.m. for 2 weeks, registered 2. And though we initially surveyed the entire city, as there were no RVs parked east of Sepulveda, we stopped surveying that region. So the graph you have before you shows the aggregate data that I collected anywhere and there's also numbers within those pins. And so if you see a 6, that means in that particular location, I saw a vehicle 6 distinct times. So there's an obvious concentration along Smoky Hollow, which got 40% of our sighting. The rest are split throughout the residential area, as you can see. And these are just some pictures to further demonstrate that point. On your left, you see Imperial Avenue, and you can actually see 4 distinct RVs. And then on your right, we have Franklin Avenue, which shows a seemingly abandoned commercial vehicle without a front shield, and an RV right behind it. These are just some additional photos of Elsie Place and Center Street right before. So the graph you have on your left shows where these vehicles were registered to. We have some states like Mississippi, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and so on, but we also have some cities from our South Bay. So it seems in the graph on your left that El Segundo has a majority of those vehicles, but once you compile all of those different states and cities into a category I termed other cities on the graph on your right, and you compare that number to El Segundo, a majority. Moving on to our public opinion survey, which was conducted June 7th until August 1st. The survey link was accessible through the city website. It was promoted mostly through our police department's Nixle. We got a total of 828 responses. Now I'm going to read most of the questions and the most selected answer. For our first question, we asked our respondents how they would characterize themselves, and most were El Segundo residents. Next, I asked if our respondents own an RV. 0.5% said they did not. Next, I asked if our respondents were aware of the 48-hour parking limitation that we just went over, and 56.2% they were not. Next, I asked how our respondents, 74.3% believe it to be a problem in El Segundo to varying degrees of concern. Next, I asked whether oversized vehicles parked on the street block their line of sight while driving, and 60.4%. Next, I asked if El Segundo considers a new oversized vehicle limitation, whether it should be less restrictive, kept the same, or more restrictive, and around 58% selected the more restrictive answer. Last, to be considered what their preferences are. So I included a myriad of options with the option to write in their own, and 52.2 said they would prefer a form of a permit system, whether it be combined with an overnight ban or not. I also, in addition to asking all of these questions of our respondents, I gave them the option to provide further insight into their concerns. And respondents generally spoke about 4 different things, which included in vehicles. They voiced concern about people living in these vehicles. Again, the traffic concerns of having these vehicles parked on public streets and a lack of enforcement of the current 48-hour restriction. And now I would once again like to introduce Lieutenant.
So we looked at several local cities. I'm highlighting 3 here. Redondo Beach has a permitting system where the permitted vehicle must be allow permits for disabled access vehicles The resident can get up to 3 7-day permits, so if they have someone visiting from out of town that stays in a motorhome, they can do that 3 times a year. They can get 6 loading and unloading permits. Residents may park on weekends and holidays without a permit all the time. So the weekends and holidays are open to residents. They don't need a permit during that time. Manhattan Beach strictly prohibits detached trailers on city streets except in 25 feet of intersections, adjacent to schools, parks, and community centers. I spoke to their traffic sergeant today. In a way, they sort of have the same problem we have. If a vehicle is not in one of those locations, they revert back to the 40, and they do not have a permit system. Torrance has a kind of a complex system, but it's a very effective system. It is illegal to park an oversized vehicle or trailer upon any public street or highway in the city of Torrance. However, there are some exceptions. Utility vehicles or public emergencies, they have a permit system. Every resident has access to up to 96 permits per year. Residents can activate those online, so they go in ahead of time, fill out an application, prove that they're a resident on it, and when they want to activate it, they simply go online or they can call in and get it activated, so an officer or a parking officer can go run that number and find out that it is activated. They are allowed to have use three of those in a row, 72 hours, but after 72 hours, you cannot get another permit. The system doesn't allow it. So even if you had it in front of your house for 72 hours, you wanted to move it to the other side of town, the system will not allow you to have another permit after 72 hours.
So having heard some examples, I thought it would be prudent to go over what I believe to be the pros and cons of these different systems. That is not to say that a permit and an overnight ban cannot be combined. That we just saw that with Torrance. So I think some of these vehicles on street for a certain amount of time, this time could be needed for the purposes of loading and unloading, as well as for emergency repairs. It also gives the police department the ability to address those quality of life issues, your friends. And again, the virtual permits could be used to lower that administrative burden. Some cons are the increased administrative burden associated with issuing permits, registering vehicles, and so on. It does require signage on street. There's a potential for fraudulent permits or abuse of legal permits, and that additional enforcement burden for our police department. For the overnight ban, some pros are that in reference to our permit system, it would be easier to implement, easier to enforce, and some cons are, again, that signage cost, but also the lack of accommodation and flexibility for residents with these vehicles. There could be potential impacts on El Segundo's economy, as well as this will require businesses who need these vehicles to additional enforcement burden for our police department. I think ultimately the solution depends on the problem council is trying to address. If the problem is seen to be RV habitation, then an overnight ban or a permit system. Problem is recreational and oversized vehicles coming in from other cities, like we saw. Then a permit system limited to residents would be appropriate. If, in addition, it's these vehicles parking by residents is a problem, then the city could do temporary loading and visitors. If council wishes to impose any additional restrictions, they should direct staff and the city attorney to return with an amendment to our city code. With that, I'm finished and I can take any questions.
First of all, thank you. That was an excellent and thorough report and shows the research you've done this summer. Thank you very much. On the measurement of the time parked, 2 hours, that's from the time a complaint is made, when the clock starts on that. So somebody could be someplace 3 days, and then you get a call, you mark it, and the 48 or 3 days plus whatever we had before then. Is that correct?
That is correct. So they're not always calls for service. Obviously, our parking people and our officers do drive by and mark them when they see them as well from time to time, but that's when the time. A card that's filled out, we put it in the station, and then our cadets or the officers will go back and look and then check those cars at the 48-hour time or as close as possible. But the officer will explain on the card how it's been marked. And so they'll notice whether there's
Hmm.
And then they'll come back, and if the penny's gone, or if the mark has been moved even an inch, they remark it, and the time starts again.
Just a lot of opportunity for abuse by people who are a little bit just have a policy that's more restrictive, but also has some flexibility built into it when grandparents come to visit and want to stay a couple of days. Can't close this. But if people from all over are coming here and taking advantage of our lack of rules.
So, they, like I said earlier, they know the game, so the residents aren't generally their late nights at work, but they're planning on leaving Saturday morning. They don't realize they're violating a 48-hour rule. It's the people that live in their vehicles and realize you can't do it in other cities anymore. They're the ones that are moving it inch by inch as they go. Last thing we want to do is negatively impact our residents in a way where, again, they want to load their motorhomes on a Friday night and take off on Saturday morning. We don't want to negatively impact them doing that.
I was a motorhome owner in this town, 50 driveway, so it didn't become anybody else's problem. It's easy to load, etc. Thank you very much. Nice job.
Thanks, sir.
I agree. I have heard from residents in town, though, who have neighbors who have, and they feel that's an intrusion also. But I think you've done an excellent job, Daisy. Thank you, Lieutenant. Very good information. And I favor an overnight ban because that would people, and they have to have their trailer or their RV for a couple days to load it up for their trips. I understand that.
And there are examples of municipal codes just like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and then looking for different situations up there, and I'm just curious, how do you assess that? How do you know if it's people from out of town or whatever? I mean, you did a license plate check on it, but how do we verify who it is that's doing this to? Because it's the residents are the ones, who's got them. If they're there for a day or two before a vacation or something, I'm perfectly supportive of that. It's when you have unknown vehicles around and they're there for more than the 48 hours. How do you assess if it's outside people or whatever? Or is it the 48-hour, you said you need something different so you could enforce it. What is it that you need? What would be a good thing to give us for enforcement? What could we give you to help you enforce it, I guess would be a good thing.
One of the great things about Torrance's system is you are not allowed to park on their streets unless you have Torrance officers come across a vehicle that, let's say, someone thinks a suspicious person is inside it in their neighborhood. If they don't have a permit on it, they can then do an inventory search subsequent to towing the vehicle, which is illegal. They hadn't opened the door when you knocked before, but now that you got the tow truck driver helping you make entry into the vehicle, then you can see who's in there. So in the way that we figure out where the vehicle is from is we run the license plate. There are things we can do try to guess, is this a male or female, this registered owner, how old may they be based on maybe another officer seeing someone near that vehicle earlier and run them to see who they might be, but it's a real stretch doing it that way.
Okay, then, then can a resident pull a permit for a visitor, I guess, in Torrance? Is that allowed?
Yes, and like I said, in Redondo, they can do it for 7 days. They can do it 3 times a year as well. Torrance, it can only be 3 days in a row. So if you have someone who wants to...
Mayor.
Yeah,
What's it like having a captain in your ear right now? Don't answer.
Someone came up to me. I'm not sure. I didn't look back to see
Who was that
guy. Regardless, people cannot.
With most of the mayors in the South Bay, and this came up at the end. I did not bring it up. The other mayors did. The ones who don't have permits yet, and then I spoke to the mayor of Torrance, and he was saying that pretty much they're just not allowed, and there is a fee, $5. But somebody had to make the effort to get a permit to put it in the vehicle for a couple of days, and he said it's really helped resolve their issues.
Yeah, Daisy and I went to Torrance and spoke to their parking control people, and I think it's a year, so if you're buying them in December, buy as few as possible, but the idea is you buy them January 1st, you get as many as you're going to need for the year. And he told us since they've had the program in place, it's been long enough now where they really don't have any problems anymore. Everyone's pretty much on board.
The enforcement of this, we changed the policy, concerns me given the lack of staff. You're just a few parking enforcement officers rather than the officers in a zone working. So I assume this would also fall to the parking enforcement.
That would be our hope, is primarily the parking enforcement people would do it. They'd be the ones that would see the vehicles out there, and if we had a permit system, would check to see if the permits were good. We currently have 5 cadets, and they are allowed to work 999 hours a year, so receive calls. They handle those calls as well.
How long does it take to get a vehicle towed?
You mean from the time we call the tow company till it could take a half hour? It's a little more complicated when they have to get into the vehicle. Pretty easy to do an inventory search. We want to make sure that we list everything that's in that car so someone doesn't come back and say there's property missing. A motorhome can take an hour to do that at times. Once we call for a tow truck, it's pretty quick.
Who's doing the towing here now?
So action from there is what? We're gonna,
I think we go to the city attorney and ask for an amendment.
Sort of amendment we're looking for, though, if we're looking for a ban on overnight parking and the types of permits, how many?
yeah. So I think, the 72-hour limit right now, that's, I'm okay with that for people loading and unloading resident-wise. It's the other ones that I'm interested in addressing is, the ones that are there for more than 72 hours that have notice, and those are the ones that I'd like to address, so.
How do you recommend identifying vehicles that are being loaded for 72 hours and not that they're just not being parked in the neighborhoods around town for 72 hours at a time?
Well, I would assume that today you get complaints from, I think you need an enforcement tool once you've been, I guess, acknowledging that, hey, we've got a complaint that there's a vehicle here that's potentially illegally parked or whatever the right terminologies are, and that's kind of the direction that I'm looking for. I don't think we want to have you guys out there inventorying streets every day about what's going on.
I wasn't thinking about inventorying streets. I was thinking something more active versus passive, where it for the days that they're going to be using it. Yes, Captain?
Can I add one thing?
Yes, Captain
Please, Captain.
Trumbull.
Real quick, Madam Mayor. The success on the east side of town, most streets are posted no overnight parking from 10 to 5. So if we look at that success of why they're not there and apply it with some flexibility with our residents, I think that's an appropriate approach. You talk about, look at what's successful on the east side of our town and mold it together.
Thank you. I know one of the cons that was brought up was the cost of signage. And would we have to have signs all over town or entries into town, like on El Segundo Boulevard? And
Towards the system, they put signs only on the entrance
Borders.
areas to their city. However, LA City has just can't park overnight. I think it's between the hours of 2 and 6. And it says very specifically, makes a difference between the two.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we probably recommend at least around all the entrances to the city, and then maybe some additional signage as well. Ideally, it would be on every street, but if that was too cost prohibitive, we could.
Thank you.
And there's a lot of people that live in town that are doing the right thing. They're keeping the vehicle in their driveway like we did. I can think of 4 lots where and they're pretty crowded with people paying the bill and keeping it out of everyone's way. And then they'll check it out when they're going to go on a trip, bring it home, load it, and they're off. So there's a lot of people doing the right.
So I recently had a moving truck in front of my former home, and I had to pull a permit for that for 3 or 4 days, and I paid money and it had to be gone, and there was signage put outside how long it was there, so I would.
And, Mr. Boyles had to recuse himself here, but Carol Persick didn't. She just couldn't be here tonight. And I'd like her to have the chance to participate in this. Come back with an amendment that might have 2 or 3 alternatives for those, or options for us to pick. We like B here. We like number 3. That, choose the specificity of the language that we were comfortable with. And that way you could go ahead and get to work, and we could fine tune it off your first draft.
Consensus of the council, then we're happy to do that.
I trust that Lieutenant and Captain kind of have a flavor for what we're looking for here. I don't want to put an undue burden onto the residents that do have these issues where they're loading and unloading. So as long as you try to protect that, I trust that you're going to come up with better than we do. So.
And it occurs to me that
If not, Daisy will keep you underlined. I'm sure that will happen.
if we have a permit process, perhaps there's a way to make it so that it'd be really easy for someone who's unloading and loading to get a permit maybe in advance. If it's a longer stay, then maybe that costs money. And, we can find ways to make it work.
And I think that might be what Torrance does for the longer stays. There's a cost associated. The mayor wasn't certain, but he thought that's
The 3 permits, I'm not sure they make a distinction, but other cities do. Hawthorne's code states that they can park up to 48 hours as long as they're loading or unloading the vehicle or working on it, and they get very specific, working on the battery or other things. So yeah, there's models for, if we look on municipal codes for other cities, there's a model for almost anything. I looked at 6 or 7 in the last week or so, and I saw a little of everything. It won't be hard if we had an idea of what you wanted, we would be able to give you some nice options.
It's what your needs are. So.
Yes.
Yeah. And Daisy's number 1 because she knows more about this than anybody else in town because she was out there all those days gathering that research. The police don't know as much. Nobody knows in the excellent report.
This is Daisy's second summer with us, and last summer she did a great job with the parking survey as well. So thank you, Daisy.
Next summer you can work on these short-term rental houses.
Thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will have Mayor Pro Tem Boyles return. He's watching us on television in the back room.
Chapter.
Right. Welcome back, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay. Our next item is reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Consideration and possible action to increase the number of appointments of the El Segundo Environmental Committee from 5 to 7 members.
The chair of the Environmental Committee is going to be making this presentation.
This will be short and sweet. I think it's pretty straightforward. The Environmental Committee is currently comprised of 5 members, 2 from the residential side, 2 from the business side, and 1 from the school, by the way. We would appreciate an expansion of our committee to 7 members so that we can draw upon a greater pool of passion, ideas, and just support on the ground to bring us into a more eco-friendly existence. As you know, the committee was on hiatus for 2 years due to catch up with the times and our responsibility to our neighbors, to our future, really. Thanks to the current round of interviews, we appreciate that we have staffed up to 5 members again, and this is the first time in a year and a half had 5 due to unexpected, and appoint 2 additional committee members, another residential and another business representative to keep it even. We would just like this expansive committee to help us cover all the work we need to do, as well as to attend different community events here, others observing. So really, we're just asking, without any fiscal impact, we want to harness this green energy and put it to work for the city.
Thank you. Council comments?
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. I thought change of members because it gave us a little bit more flexibility, so we asked the council to endorse our bylaws as a committee. So my understanding was that we were going to put forth up to 7. But is it your preference that you'd like it to be a set number? Or
Is when we've gone down to 3 and we've been unable to do things. We think that beyond that, it might get a little hard to manage the division of labor and to make sure everybody's here. But we are open to your considerations.
Great.
The more the merrier is what we're not so much. Yes,
An
that would be a
additional
concern
person.
if you get too big.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we increase the number of appointments of the El Segundo Environmental Committee from 5 to 7 members.
Second.
Thank you for your service.
More
You are
interviews for us.
correct. That is a passionate group of
From the
people
wings
that you
go
have
up.
there.
We are happy to have them. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Consent agenda, any pulls?
I'd like to pull number 6, please.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8? Pardon? You want to pull 8? Oh, 8. Oh, I don't have that one. And 8A.
Yeah.
Oh, 8.
Second.
All in favor?
What are the numbers again we're approving?
1 through 8A without
4,
6,
5,
whatever it is. not
7,
1,
8,
3,
and 8.
3 through.
May I see 8A?
You mean, not 1, you mean 3, starting at 3.
3 through 8A. There's
7,
an 8 and an
8,
8A.
and 8A. There's an amended agenda that I don't have, 8A,
Yeah.
which you know what, I'll pull it and read it since you haven't seen it either. So do I have a motion to approve 3, 4?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 4-0. Mayor Pro Tem?
Number 6, I was just hoping to get a little bit of insight. I think this is related, the way I understand it, to the project that would link conduit from city hall, redundancy, being able to bring our data up into the cloud, and have offsite data replication. So can you just give us a little bit of insight on
Sure.
this, Greg? I thought this was done, but I know it's back up again, so.
Sure. I'll ask Captain Ivansky to, a few more.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, exactly what you said. It is to do our completion across Sepulveda. Actually, they'll bore underneath through a Caltrans permit that we will, again, have to reapply for and connect into a data center on the east side, providing us with internet throughout the city and potential dark fiber capabilities in the future.
And then, Captain, why do we have to rebid? Yeah, just refresh my memory on that part, if you
So
wouldn't
this
mind,
is third time's a charm. The first time that we bid this, it came in, during the second bid, there were 2 change orders that changed the project over 50%, which reduced the contract. And after working with the city attorney, it was at the request of the vendor to cancel that contract. Specs will be when they go out, good understanding of what we anticipate the bids to come back at. That's why we're bidding it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is this connected in any way to the, we're getting a report writing center at the point?
Approved a microwave project actually last council for that,
Right.
and we are working on the contract to have that done as well.
And
But
that's
totally,
what's-
total separate.
Okay, that's what I thought, and that's what's holding that up from beginning?
And on now, we're actually, the contract is with the city attorney to amend our contract that we have with the company that has done work with us previously.
So Captain Ivansky, the principal benefits of this project are to connect the city facilities on the west side of town to the city center where our servers are to increase security and storage. But that connection also drastically improves our connectivity and our internet speed?
Correct. That gives us the opportunity to utilize their internet and increases our internet speed tenfold.
Region, if there's a
Yes, sir.
catastrophe.
East side of town.
Right, which is,
Correct.
yeah, really important, okay.
So the action tonight that we're requesting council to do is to reject the bids, which is being done at the request of the bidder. So we don't see that as an issue. We do need to rebid with the revised scope, additional funds for this to move forward, and we'll be talking to council about that on the 29th when we have our budget workshop.
Other questions?
None for me.
No, thank you,
Very much.
Captain.
Vantage Utility Services, Inc. for fiber optic conduit and cable installation, project number PW 14-08, and rebid the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 4-0. Thank you. And then item 8A is considered incorporated for additional construction support services for the Richmond Street Rehabilitation Project, fiscal impact $5,000. City Manager?
We're nearing completion of the Richmond Street project. We've had some additional design and come to the council, but because this is an extension of a larger contract, we are required to come before council to ask for some additional funds to finish out some of the additional unanticipated work.
Can you tell us what the additional unanticipated work is?
There's been a various category requests to the property owners. The property owners see things that are different from what was shown on the original plans, and we try to address those problems or those special requests as they come up.
Thank you. And examples of that are things like tree placement or?
Tree placements, drain locations, roof drain locations, trying to address some slope issues.
Thank you.
Is-
So, yes, sir.
Is any of this caused by the delay in the project between the contractors? If so, we should take it out of their hide.
Stephanie Ketzelis is telling me no, but there are other issues that we will be talking to the contractor about.
We keep a retention.
Yes.
Thanks.
So with that, I move approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Thank you. New business, receive and replacement, request for proposal, fiscal impact unknown. City
He's
Manager.
Captain Ivansky will present this item. This is an informational item really intended to tell the council and the public more about the fact that we're launching this project.
So, Miles, I see on your face, I'm hoping that we're happy that it's going forward. After speaking with staff, working in the capacity that I am as the IT director, basically, it is obvious that our website needs a redo. So I reached out to a few other cities that have copies of the RFPs that they sent out, determined that that was probably the best process. Actually worked with our city attorney, David King. We have prepared an RFP to present out, hoping for several proposals to come back. A lot of out to us requesting the RFP when it does go out. While it's out, we will create a evaluation team to evaluate those proposals that come back using all of our staff from different city departments, all the city departments. I'm hoping for input and advice, and have the vendors that meet the criteria for our responsible bid come in, do their vendor presentations, and hopefully come back to you in November with a product that we anticipate putting forward and a you and for the public on what we're trying to do to better our website.
Thank you. That is very good news, and everybody agrees that our website could use improvement. However, I want to give a shout out to the people who they do the employees, just the tool.
Yes, I tried to learn this a long time ago with a Civica system that we were using and we use, and it's way over my head, and we do have some pretty phenomenal people that take care of that for us, so thank you.
We've already made that decision. We'll see if we budgeted the right amount when we get the responses back to the RFP.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
We're good. Reports, City Manager.
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
To reflect that earlier tonight, the City Council met in closed session, and as part of a report out, I wanted to report that the City Council voted to approve a settlement agreement in a pending case, Penuelas versus the City of El Segundo. The vote was for, so the settlement agreement is that the city will be paying Mr. Penuelas $262,500 for his alleged injury suffered in a serious slip and fall accident here in the city. And the settlement agreement should be available in about 1 week. And in light of the strategic planning session that occurred within the past couple weeks, our office is working with the city manager's office and other departments on a social media policy. We want to get that in place sooner rather than later because, and also we're working with planning department on various code amendments that'll be coming to the council, code amendments to the downtown specific plan and also the zoning code, so that'll be coming your way in the next couple months. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing other than to say happy birthday to my husband. I'm here instead of off to dinner, so happy birthday, Kirby.
It's also our chief of police's birthday today.
Yeah, Mitch's
Oh,
birthday, yeah.
happy birthday, Chief. Thank you. Our city.
Thank you. Since we had our last regular meeting, we had our early morning strategic planning meeting, our second one, and that went very well. Appreciate the facilitator who the Friends of the Library met since we did last. I'd like to thank the mayor for attending that meeting, and it was good. The group approved some money for up, and very positive meeting. It's nice to have visitors there. The police department put on a terrific neighborhood watch meeting a couple of Saturdays ago, and for the first time, video from the March 2008 shooting at the Pacific Theater. The room was packed. Drew Boyles and I were there. It was a very pretty profound at what happened there right in our city 8 years ago. And it really moved a lot of people who I talked to the next day at the concert in the park, our last concert in the park for, I couldn't sleep last night because that really bothered me to see what happened that day or that evening, and how blessed we are that our officers who were both injured lived and were able to come back to work. That I went last Friday afternoon on a ride-along with a police officer, and it was the first time I went on a ride-along during the day. All the others have been at night. Or with it was pretty quiet. The dispatch didn't come on much. We just small things, but not much. And then about 10 minutes to 4, in came a call from the ArcLight. Patrons were complaining about somebody in their theater that was not doing okay. And so we happened to be the first ones in on that and waited until I'm standing back and observing this. I'm thinking of the movie I saw the Saturday before. And it really was sobering to know how something can go south so quickly. Not people are going to get back to their families that evening. It really happens out there. And so this was a little scary, especially to me. And it was handled so incredibly professionally by our officers. Yet it was very difficult to manage. So very impressed by that, and it just gave me great appreciation for that. The neighborhood watch. We have another one of those coming up on the 27th. This in St. John's. So I encourage people to go. That one's going to be about active shooter. We all see that every day throughout this world. So we get some tips there on the best things we can do. And speeches from a Tree Musketeer leadership contestants that I enjoyed listening to. They're learning the skills that are going to make them productive citizens, and see that public speaking is something that is scary to most Americans. Many Americans would rather die than publicly speak. They're so unnerved by it. So one of the things that's so important to work with kids who will be future musketeers does a wonderful job with that, Toastmasters, etc. So I had a good couple of weeks and looking for another couple coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perstuck is not here this evening. Councilmember Dugan?
Nothing, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, well, I have some things. Councilmember Brand already commented on strategic planning and Friends of the Library. That was an interesting meeting to go to with a lot of committed people who serve on that, committed to our libraries. I did the weekend before maybe, which was great fun, hosted by the Rotary, a historic turnout. Like Councilmember Brand said, attended the last concert in the park. Thank you, Recreation and Parks. Thank you to the sponsors, Chevron and Scott Nickel. We will be holding interviews for committees, commissions, and board on August 29th. So if anyone is interested in applying for anything, please go on our website and get the information to apply for any boards you're interested in. Today, and they're $15 right now, and you can get them at the library, the Joslin Center, the Checkout, and the Clubhouse. Also, this weekend is the Downtown Car Show, and I understand that it's going to be excellent, that there's just as many registrations this year. Our city attorney mentioned something about social media, and I know that there is a Facebook page now for the city of El Segundo that's been posting information for people, so go check that out. And then the last thing today, I attended a meeting which the South Bay City's COG has come out against. We are not in favor of this measure because it is not equitable to the South Bay. In the past, the South Bay has been referred to as a donor area that's of the county, and so we have taken a stand against Measure M. So the mayor wanted to get us together and talk about what it is we are interested in and what we're looking for. So I thank Mayor Garcetti for engaging the South Bay mayors to see what's important, lobbying to get the Olympics to Los Angeles in 2024. So that is everything I have. So with that, we will go back to public communications.
I'm Joyce Genius. I have a RV and I was stuck on the freeway, so I couldn't come earlier to speech to it. And my issue is the city broke already in on a strange caller, and last weekend I got reimbursed, but I realized this was not so. And I realized that you're trying to enforce or trying to get in something, and that's and I relocated out of my RV, and I have a roommate situation right now, and I park my RV still around. And my problem is I now enforced it, and how the citizen reacted on motorhomes last to the end by the insisting in the citizen probably motorhomes are evil, they are not welcome anymore. Friends, they go against me probably in Hermosa Beach, threw an X, everything on my RV, had nails under my tires, and was very, very inconvenience for my side. Usually the city does it illegal. That's I tell you right away. I was not a citizen before I was a permanent resident. I'm right now a citizen. I accomplished this with help. Also even here for the city. I'm very how the city does it. It says less crime. And I must admit through the motorhomes and so stuff, is it less? By you having the 48 hours moving, mine, I'm very blessed when I'm not at home and cannot look and go to my RV. And, so I think to let it like this, how you have it right now, it's very good. And then please explain that's not in the near of the houses, maybe more in the industry, to park the motorhomes. I have a lot of inconvenience done. I now was from enforcing an oversized vehicle permit, and I see only it's just a really inconvenience for everybody who has a motorhome here. And you have to have enforcement here. That means you have or to have parking enforcement here, whatever. And yeah, that's original what I want to tell you. I have very far experience with this, and I would insisting in people to getting an oversized vehicle permit, but that's insisting in people as well harassment. Also another thinking that's motorhomes are evil, and you're getting like mental sick people they're just insisting what's not is. That's the problem. What's originally insisted by Hamza Beach, and I have it done, and I want to tell Segundo, in this case, what is the 48 hours moving around, not being in near of the, also of the houses. That would be the best result for the motorhomes and the oversized.
Evening. My name is Jack Axelrod. I live at 317 Richmond Street. I've been living there for 16 years. I heard in the 16 years I've lived here, I've never been offered a public survey about anything. I check my mailbox, but I never get a public survey. I'm suggesting that you plant ivy on the west wall of the parking structure on Richmond. Is planned on it. I'd like to speak about the conventions very, very briefly. Several times there were so-called spontaneous demonstrations. This country on earth. Well, that to me was very embarrassing. We're not the greatest country on earth. I don't want to be a part of the greatest country on earth. Next item. I'd like you to consider eliminating the invocation to God to begin each of the public meetings. There must be somebody in here in the city besides myself that does not believe in God, and I find it's damaging to exist. I'm not enough of a psychologist to know why it's damaging, but I can feel it, and that's good enough for me. What else? There's something else. I am unprepared as usual, no notes. I think I'm done. Thank you very much for your, this last thing. I've always said this when I've come in, and it's not meant in any way except as the truth. You're very nice people. You're very nice folks. I'm aware of that. I'm not a very nice person. I'm a lousy son to both of my parents. I was a mediocre teacher for the 14 years that I taught. I'm not a nice person, but you are very nice. You are very nice folks. But I suggest that the people who work at Boeing and Raytheon weapons of war, and it seems to me that you ought to be able to ban cluster bomb construction or any weapons that produce death. Knowing also that we have here in the city the Air Force Base. I know that the mayor is very friendly and chummy, but they direct the killing of other people, and it's not necessary. It's not for our protection. It's to further a government that relies on a permanent war economy. I'm talking too much. Only 2 minutes. Thank you. I didn't finish. Very nice people that work down there at the refinery too. Those people, those are nice folks. I stop for them in the crosswalk when they're crossing El Segundo Boulevard. Those are nice folks that are working at the refinery, and they're poisoning our air. Are all saintly. We're all an admixture of a lot of interior forces, and we don't deal enough. We're not aware enough. We don't attend enough to what those forces are. Thank you very much for your attention.
Honorable City Council, I'm Mike Carriel. I am the SoCalGas Public Affairs Manager assigned to the City of El Segundo. Good evening to all of you. Over the last heat waves, and we've had a few flex alerts, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to come out and talk to you just a little briefly about energy reliability within El Segundo and the other cities that we serve, and also energy. We have hot water when we need hot water, natural gas when we need to heat our water, we need to heat our homes, and also when we flick the switch for electricity. And I mention electricity because many don't realize and electricity. Over 60% of the electricity that we use in Southern California is generated from natural gas. 90% of the natural gas that we consume comes from out of state, so transportation and storage companies. So we purchase the gas, bring it into the state line. From the state line, we push it out to over 17 electrical generation companies, as well as the neighborhoods and cities and business. What's crucial to our natural gas system is our storage facility. And the way I like to explain storage facilities is for like Costco shoppers. We go to Costco, we bring it home, we store it in our pantries, and then when we need it, we pull it out. Our storage facilities are the same way. We purchase natural gas in bulk at a very, very low price. We bring it to our, we can pull from it so that we have it at a very, very good price and that it's readily available. So without the storage facilities, electrical generation companies may not be able to produce electricity. Some businesses may run their operation. When it comes to conservation, we just announced a new initiative called conserveenergysocal.com. It's about the correlation between natural gas and electricity. They can learn about conserving both natural gas and electricity. They can learn about things and products that they can use and acquire to help money to utilize that site. And lastly, I just kind of briefly just did a very high flyover and skimmed over a lot of the information about natural gas and energy reliability. I did send an invite to all of you month. It's going to be at our Playa del Rey storage facility. We do have a storage facility in Playa del Rey. It's our smallest facility. We're going to talk a little bit about energy reliability, natural gas, electricity generation, give you a tour of that facility so that you get a better idea and understanding what a storage facility does and what it looks like. So I invite you or your aides or any city representative to accept that invitation. And
I do have one more thing. I received a package of information. Oh, I'll close public communications, seeing none. I received a package of information from Vector Control about mosquitoes and other insects. To the city manager's office if anybody is interested in these pamphlets and more information. So with that, we are adjourned. 8:35.